Kayla from JubileeFabric.com, and I want to show you today this beautiful quilted frayed table runner that I made using homespun fabric. This table runner is about 48 inches long and about 15 inches wide, and I'm going to take you through it step by step and show you all the steps along the way. Now, rag style stitching is a great beginner project. Now, whether you're a new sewer and you're just learning how to sew, this is a great way to start to learn this. It's really simple and fast and goes together real easy and quick. If maybe you've been sewing for a while and you just want to try your first rag style project, this is still a great project to just get your feet wet and learn what you're doing there. And then if you like rag style stitching, like most of us do, you can move on to a bigger project then and feel a little more comfortable and know what you're doing. So first I want to talk to you about the materials that I use to make this table runner with. You will need, to make this size, you will need 104 5-inch squares of homespun fabric. Now you absolutely want homespun. Regular quilted cotton will not fray like this and give you this beautiful frayed effect after you're finished. So make sure you get homespun. Now the easy way to do that is what I did here with our pre-cut 5-inch charm packs that we sell at JubileeFabric.com. These packs come in 40 plus per pack, 40 plus squares, and you'll get just a wide variety of colors there, which is exactly what I used here. For this size, you'll need probably 3 charm packs. You'll have a few left over just to use for other things, or just to give you a little variety if maybe if there's a color you don't like and you want to substitute that. Now, some other options, if you want to cut them out yourself and you don't want to buy the pre-cut, is we have some rag bags on the website that you can purchase and just get a variety mix of colors, just kind of random mix, and you would find a lot of 5-inch squares that you could cut out of that. You may have your own quilting squares left over from projects that you've done before, and you would have enough to cut out 104 of those squares. Then you can also, we sell fabric by the yard. If you want to be real particular and design something with certain colors or something like that, you can absolutely just buy it by the yard and cut it out yourself. You'll need about 2 yards of fabric, and you can just break that up however you want among the colors that you're using. Now you'll also need some batting. If your batting is 60 inches wide, you'll need about 1/3 of a yard, and you want to use low loft, either polyester or cotton batting, either one, but just make sure it's low loft, and that should give you enough to cut out your batting squares. You'll need 52 3 1/4 inch squares of batting. The first thing I'm going to do is to stitch my blocks together, create my blocks, and you'll need 2 of your 5-inch homespun squares to make a block. You can use the same fabric like I'm doing here, or you can use a different fabric on the back if you want to be creative with that. That's entirely up to you, and it's just optional. You'll need 1 of your little batting squares. These are, again, 3 1/4 inch batting squares. Place it in the center, center it up on all sides. Make sure you've got at least 5/8 inch of a margin around all the outside of this batting square, because you don't want this batting square to extend beyond the stitching line. If you need to, just take some scissors and kind of trim that down a little bit to make it fit. It's okay if it's too small. If you wind up with like a full inch on the edges, that's fine. You just don't want it too big. Place your second homespun square on top of that, and you can pin this. I generally don't pin mine. It's small enough I can just usually hold it in place like this to stitch, but this is going to be your sandwich, and we're going to stitch all the way across from one corner to the other, and then we're going to do another one to make an X in the middle. And I have one here that I've already stitched up. You can see where my stitching goes from one corner to the other. It stops about 1 inch from the corner all the way around, and do a little back stitch at the beginning and the end to hold that into place. And then this is your finished block, and we're going to need 52 of these blocks to put together into the table runner. So the next step now is to make all my blocks. I've now stitched up all of my little homespun squares into blocks, and I have 52 blocks. It's 14 blocks long, or 13 blocks long, I'm sorry, 13 blocks long and 4 blocks wide, and I've got them laid out the way I want them to be. The best way to do this is just lay them out and then start tweaking it. You know, move them around until you're happy with the layout, or if you're just using a couple of colors, you might have a certain pattern that you want to do with this, but with this random mix, it's best to just throw them out there and then tweak them. Now what you'll want to do is to label the beginning of each row I've got these little post-it notes with 1, 2, 3, 4 written on them. And then you'll stack these up in the sequence that they're in, saving the sequence because you want to stitch them up in the same order that you've got them laid out so that you'll be pleased with the pattern when you're finished. And I'll come all the way down here with this first row, keeping that first block on top. There's my first row. Then I start again with the next row, doing the same thing, stacking in the same sequence, keeping that number 2 block on top each time. Now we've got our 4 stacks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all in the same sequence that we want them to be in. So I'm going to take these to my sewing machine now and stitch these together. I'm going to stitch it with a 5/8 inch seam, and I'm going to use a very small, tight little stitch because we don't want that stitching to come undone, and we want it to hold the fray. So when the fray starts happening, we want it to stop at the stitch line. Now I've got all my blocks stitched together into rows, and I've got 4 rows of blocks with 13 blocks in each row. The next step is to stitch these rows together. I'll be stitching along the line, and I'm going to match these seam allowances up between the blocks. When I pin this together, I'm going to pin it on the seams all the way down. I want to stitch row number 1 to row number 2, then I pin row number 3 onto row number 2 and stitch that. Then I'll have rows 1, 2, and 3 stitched together, and I'll add row number 4 to that, pinning it to the outside of row number 3 until they're all stitched together. Now this is very forgiving. If you don't get these seams matched up just perfectly, don't worry about it, because these seam allowances are going to fray and they're going to fluff out over your stitching, and if you didn't stitch just quite right, or if you didn't get them matched up just quite right, it's never going to show. Remember, close enough is good enough when you're rag stitching. Here's my table runner now, and it's all stitched up. The very last stitch that I did after putting these rows together was a perimeter stitch all around the outside edge, just to seal that in and keep the fray from going too far into your table runner. You just want the fray to stop at the edge of the stitching. So my stitch is about 5/8 of an inch deep all the way around the perimeter, again with a small tight stitch. The next step is to clip, and I'm going to clip all these exposed seam allowances now, and that's what's going to make our beautiful fray. After washing it, all these clipped edges will turn into fray, and I'm just going to clip about a 1/2 inch deep and about a 1/2 inch apart. And if you have spring-loaded scissors, you will want these because they will really help with the hand fatigue. Your hand can get really tired with regular scissors just doing all this clipping. So I've done all the clipping now. I went over this very carefully and made sure that I clipped every single seam allowance. It's all clipped, and that's what's going to make our beautiful fray when we wash it up. So I'm ready to take this home and wash it and see this beautiful table runner when we're finished. Well, here is my finished product. I'm so pleased with the way it turned out. I took it home and washed it in my machine with liquid fabric softener to help work your strings loose, and some table salt. Just about 1/4 cup of table salt will help set the colors to where they won't run or bleed or fade as much. You just need to do that the first time you wash it. After that, you don't need any more table salt. But as you can see, the fray is just beautiful on this. Now the back side also is pretty. You have more finished seams on the back side and fray around the edges. So either way is a really nice look, and you really get a reversible product, especially if you wanted to use different color fabrics on the back side. You could really change that up and give yourself a couple of options there. Now one last thing I want to show you is that this kind of stitching can be used in all sorts of ways. Now here is a much larger quilt that I made. This is a couch size throw, and I quilted it with the batting and everything. I used the same fabric set on this. This is the whitewash fabrics, but on this one I used the 6-inch charm packs to make this. Rag stitching with homespun fabric is super easy and super fun, and it's a little bit addictive. You can find all kinds of beautiful homespun fabrics at jubileefabric.com, and you'll also find a link to a page called Weekend Projects that has a lot more really creative and interesting ways to do the rag style stitching. Lots of quilts there, but then lots of other things as well that I think you'll enjoy. So thank you for joining me for this project. This has been fun, and I hope I've inspired you to try rag style quilting or to try a new project. And if you make something amazing, send us a picture. We love to see what our customers are making with homespun fabric. We love rag style quilting, and we think you will too. Remember, with rag style, close enough is good enough.